Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sir Hunt on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, here in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 6th of March 2025. Actually, a bit of the white stuff came here this morning, and it was a bit interesting. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. I'm talking about the snow, of course, but hopefully it's the end of it because we're supposed to have warm weather here in Cincinnati, and hopefully the spring weather comes around where parts of the country and globe you guys are watching the show from tonight. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. And boy, we have a filled show today. And boy, things just got wacky here in the state of Ohio for like the third time in the last week. Oh my goodness. Well, let's start with Northeastern Ohio. Once again, the Cleveland Browns feel the need to restructure the contract of Deshaun Watson. And it is capped, I believe it freed up $36 million. And per usual, Browns fans have their panties all up in a bunch. It goes back to what I said many times before. Nobody in Cleveland gets it. I guess I have to break my own record for saying this again. You guys wanted this guy to throw Baker Mayfield under the bus when you got him. You forked out the draft capital, fully guaranteed the contract, and now this is what you're stuck with. And I talked about the allegations. I'm not going to include that in this conversation. That's another topic for another day. But this is what you asked for when you got him and you threw Baker Mayfield under the bus. And it's going to cost you guys Myles Garrett. It cost you guys Amari Cooper last season. And now this is what you're stuck with. So at this point, you just got to live with it. Simply because I said all along, this is the bid you made when you got him 3 years ago. You brought him and his baggage. And now you have no out of this. At this point, you just needed to shut up and go lie in it because that's where you guys belong. We talk about what this situation with your quarterback is all about. You had one when you guys went to the AFC divisional round of 2019 against Kansas City, and you threw him under the bus the next year. And you did what you did to get Deshaun Watson, and now you have nothing to show for it. Actually, you made it one playoff appearance, but that was because you called Joe Flacco off the couch. But right now, once again, you guys are getting what you deserved. You're handcuffed to this guy. You have no other choice right now because it seemed like every chance you get to send the guy out the door. Excuse me. The Browns franchise does everything to make sure to keep him. But this is what you asked for when you wanted this guy because you thought the contract you signed Deshaun Watson to back in 2022 was going to run Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow out of Baltimore and Cincinnati respectively, which didn't happen. You guys thought you were going to overtake Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh for the North. That didn't happen. You only guys won a playoff appearance, which you called Joe Flacco off the couch. And guess who it was that knocked you out of the playoffs? The Houston Texans, the team you gave up 3 first-round draft picks for to get Deshaun Watson. Karma has come knocking on your door, and you guys might as well just take it because at this point you have no other way out. You made your bed, shut your mouths, go lie in it, and that's all I'm about to say about you guys on that topic. I hope someday you guys can go back to relevancy to where we have the competitive AFC North again. But with the way you guys are right now with this quarterback and your fan base over there, you're getting what you deserve, and I don't feel sorry for you one bit. Somebody have to talk about this every day. I don't know why, because the Browns fans want to sucker themselves into something stupid. But there's another fan base in Ohio I'm going to get to you in a second. But there's something we told you guys for the longest time. And per usual, you guys are behind the 8 ball on this particular subject. But it's okay. It is what it is. Now to the real big news of the day. We're going to go from northeastern Ohio to southwestern Ohio. That's here in Cincinnati. It is the Cincinnati Bengals, I guess, failure to come to a conclusion with Trey Hendrickson, gave him permission to seek a trade, and Bengals fans have their panties all up in a bunch per usual. Not to mention one of these morons, Drew Garrison, who's not man enough to pick a razor to shave his face for his life, for once in his sorry life, wants to do a live stream from his car with one of the cell phones that is as big as my head. Well, first of all, somebody needs to tell that guy to lay off the Skyline Chili's, alcohol, drugs, criminal records, and pick up a razor and shave his face because, man, the guy looks like a homeless bum with a thick-looking, ugly beard of his. Second of all, not just to him, but all the super fans like him. Just like the fans of Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. When you wanted Joe Burrow to be paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history in 2023, and you signed him that contract when the football was kicked during the Kansas City-Detroit NFL opener in 2023. When he got the contract done, you didn't even think about this, did you? I told all you guys for then, and I said it now. Don't come calling when basically when the contract kicks in, which is going to kick in next season with a $47.5 million cap hit, that this is going to be the result. And here we are. You resorted to franchise tagging T. Higgins. You guys want T. Higgins paid in the most sick-headed way possible, which I don't know why. You want Jamar Chase to be paid the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, understandably so. His stats last year backed it up. I get it. And now you making all these moves to gut the roster to try and appease Trey Hendrickson on top of it. Now, of course, his agent Harold Lewis was here to talk with the Bengals brass. I know it was like last week or this week or last week of some sorts, and I guess it didn't go through the way they wanted it. And the Bengals took the high road, basically gave Trey Hendrickson the permission to seek a trade. But there's an underlying picture here that, again, I have to discuss with among the Bengals super fans. You know, the morons like Zim, the Bengals captain, Drew Garrison, Kelsey Conway, Kay Adams, Sarah Elise, Mo Egger, among many you other idiots out here. People like myself try to explain this, which you guys were too short-sighted and too short-brained to understand it. That's not how the salary cap works. This is like the NBA salary cap where you can have like your cap flexibility, then you go into your luxury tax and your repeater tax and all that stupid stuff. The NFL is a hard cap. You can't get to that number. And once you get to that number, you have to either restructure or cut players. And that's what's happened since all you guys I mentioned were so sick-headed obsessed with wanting Joe Burrow paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history when the boot to ball was kicked during the 2023 kickoff of the NFL season. The contract now kicking in here is a $47.5 million cap hit coming up. Some of you guys are so incoherent with mathematics that I don't know what the hell to tell you or what the hell to explain to you. Because this was coming. You guys tried everything you can to dissolve yourselves from it. You guys did everything you could to exempt accountability from it and responsibility from it. But now here we are. And now you guys are all have your panties all up in a bunch because you guys cannot accept the reality of the fact that the salary cap is going to bite you and you're about to lose a key piece of your defensive side for whatever it is. Now, I give a couple of people this credence. I get it. The guy's 30 years old. He's coming off two insanely crazy years stat-wise. We had 35 sacks, and we know how bad the defense was. And basically, Trey Hendrickson's been the focal point of the defense. I get it. He's 30 years old. You're probably going to get some decent draft capital out of him because I think some teams who need an edge rusher, like maybe a Washington or maybe a Philly, can fork out draft capital. I get you don't want to pay the guy the Max Crosby money that he got when in Las Vegas for a guy who's at that age. Understood. But the problem is, once again, all the names I mentioned in the Cincinnati super fan base, you guys have short-sighted vision. You guys don't know how to pick up razors to shave your beards. You guys are so stuck on Skyline chili, alcohol, and heroin. And as a result, you can't think straight and comprehend math. Why? Because 2 years ago, this was coming. You thought you was going to be able to manipulate the salary cap to sign all of these superstar players to top dollar contracts. And that's not how the NFL salary cap works. Those in Kansas City try to tell you for the longest time, you didn't want to listen. Not Pittsburgh fans try to tell you, you didn't want to listen. Baltimore fans try to tell you, you didn't want to listen. Now, you guys are still slandering Lamar Jackson for his contract when basically you haven't done anything since Lamar Jackson came back healthy. And not to mention, even your own fan base, myself included, try to tell you this was coming when you push for this sick-headed narrative of wanting Joe Burrow being paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. You got it. Excuse me. Even Mike Brown said it a few years ago. Your owner, the one you like to bash, understandably and rightfully so. We're going to be having to lose players at some point. You guys weren't even prepared for this. You guys thought the salary cap was going to magically work in your favor, and you're going to keep everybody. Players are going to leave money on the table so they can keep guys. No, that doesn't work that way. When you have players the caliber that you have, and it's for every team, not just here in Cincinnati, every team, they're going to want top dollar every chance they get. They're not going to leave money on the table. They're not going to leave monies to appease teammates, even though Joe Burrow came out and said he would do it. The thing is, deep down, I think he doesn't want to But then again, who knows? But here we are. You guys are in the same situation here that Cleveland is in for the same reasons. You guys don't know how to proactively prepare yourselves for what's to come years down the road when you want to shell out all the unnecessary cash for the quarterback, which I don't know. I would pay Joe Burrow that money. I don't have a problem with it. It's how you guys prep yourselves and try to stay away from disappointment that was about to come when you were so obsessed and so sick-headed obsessed with wanting Joe Burrow being paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history at the time when the boot to foot was kicked off in 2023. And when that contract was signed, trust me, a lot of people were laughing. A lot of people were telling you what was going to happen. And not to mention, about a month later, you guys had an overnight Twitter party when you signed the overpaid Orlando Brown Jr. to that stupid contract from Kansas City, thinking you guys just going to overtake the Chiefs and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl for years to come. When ever since you signed Orlando Brown Jr., guess what happened? You haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 seasons. Spare me your excuses. The results are the results. You guys didn't make the playoffs the last 2 seasons. And when you sign a contract like that, you're going to get this end result with the salary cap, because that's what it is. Trey Hendrickson has really overplayed his contract. Now, I agree with a couple of people I talked with earlier that I want to pay the guy 35 plus mil in the Max Crosby range simply because, he's of his age. I get it. But you had a chance to lock this up 2 seasons ago when you were negotiating with Joe Burrow, and this came up because, remember, at this time last season, even Trey Hendrickson requested a trade, and it didn't turn up. He basically honored the contract, and here we are in 2025, same situation. Bengals gave him the permission to seek the trade. You guys have this short-sighted, small-brain thinking here in Cincinnati so bad that sometimes I don't even know how to educate you guys. I don't even know if you guys know how to educate yourselves. That's a big problem. And just like in Cleveland, where I told him 3 years ago with Deshaun Watson, I told you that we told you this 2 years ago with Joe Burrow. This was going to happen. Now, what's going to happen eventually? You're probably going to have to pay Chase the greatest non-quarterback contract in NFL history or whatever it is, which I expect to get. You can't be that stupid. You'll probably have to pay T. Higgins now by default because it would be the biggest PR hit if you guys don't. But that's because you guys are so obsessed with wanting T. Higgins here instead of Trey Hendrickson. And because of it, Trey Hendrickson is going to be likely out the door. Now, of course, everybody's talking about all the cap savings. I get it. But here's the thing now. If Trey Hendrickson is traded, and it's not a foregone conclusion at this point, if he's traded, you guys in Cincinnati, everybody affiliated with the Bengals, the fans, even the super fans whose names I called out, you moronic media people like Sarah Elise, who's a grade A coward, and Kelsey Conway also, and all your content creators out here like Joe Goodberry, Jake Lisco, and whoever the frick you morons are, better push to have your off season and your draft be nothing but defense if you trade Trey Hendrickson. Period. Don't talk about re-signing T. Higgins. All that cap money, all your draft picks better be loaded on that defense, given how bad it was last season, because otherwise it's going to be a bad look if you don't even pay attention to that defense at all. Because that's where I lost 90 to 95% of you guys at the end of last season, because you guys are so sick-headed, obsessed with wanting to put your quarterback in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels when he is not in that conversation. And you forgot about the other side of the ball. It doesn't work that way. It's not Madden on rookie mode with a salary cap turned off, trade override turned off, and all the turned off the injuries, etc., etc. Now you have to choose between Xbox and PlayStation. I can't choose that for you because that's what it is. This is the reality you guys were staring at when you push a narrative for wanting Joe Burrow to be paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. You got it. Live with the consequences because this was coming. It's basically between T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson, I guess, because everybody thinks Jamar Chase is going to get paid. Now, if you don't pay Jamar Chase, I don't know what the hell he's going to tell you. Now we have fans and super fans want to jump off the bandwagon and telling the team to just get out of Hamilton County. Doesn't work that way. It's between the city and the team. I'll tell you another problem that you guys fail to overlook and overlook big time. Over the last 2 years, they shelled out nearly $3 million for stadium upgrades. Think about it. Over an area of close to $3 million of stadium upgrades over the last couple years. I was there week 3. I don't see any upgrades. Maybe just a different painting of the football field, but that's like you can't classify that as an upgrade. Okay, I get it. Maybe you should have built a new stadium from the ground up. You have to worry about any of this. And you guys want to talk about the ownership or whatever? Yes, they deserve a boatload of blame because this could have been prevented a couple years ago. But you guys don't absolve yourselves from any of the blame because you push for the narrative to wanting Joe Burrow to be paid the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, thinking he's in the same conversation as Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, Hurts, or Daniels when he's not. Just like the fans in Cleveland, you guys made your bed. Now you guys better shut up and go lie in it. And when it comes to this offseason, the focus better be defense and defense only. I don't want to hear about being extensions to Trey Higgins. I don't want to hear about extensions to anybody else. Defense, defense, defense. Look at how bad the defense was. If you're not focusing on defense in the offseason or the draft, you don't even know how to think or comprehend, and I'm not going to deal with you. Plain and simple. And some of you guys need to pick up a damn shaver and shave your ugly-looking beards and lay off the Skyline chilies and alcohol and heroin. My goodness. Some of you guys look strung out on your profile pics on Facebook and Twitter, and some of you guys with your beards look like you're too lazy to get off the couch. Maybe that's why everything's happened the way it is here. We'll be talking more about this later because I don't even know what's going to happen. Still the small possibility that he could stay. I think the point of this is to see his value and his worth out there, which I understand it. I mean, I guess he wants to try and cash out before his downturn begins, understandably so. But the Bengals had the chance to do that a couple years back. They blew it. Good luck with this offseason because the fun is about to begin. And I'm going to sit back and just watch you guys just have your panties all up in a bunch because I warned you guys time after time after time this was going to happen. You guys don't know how the salary cap works? We don't have a salary cap guru in that freaking front office. I mean, who the hell is it? Good luck. We'll talk more to you guys later. I actually have an NFL show I have coming up later on tonight with a bunch of people with a gridiron with them guys, group people. I'll be talking more about that there. Touch on a couple more NFL maneuvers. Joey Bosa was released from the Chargers. I'd be surprised if he's not a San Francisco 49er. Put him at the tackle next to his brother, Nick Bosa. That makes all the logical sense. Because, of course, Javon Hargrove was released. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. Was a solid nose tackle 1 point over there. See where he goes. Christian Kirk traded to the Texans from Jacksonville. I think it's a solid trade because they need a receiver opposite of Nico Collins because Stephon Diggs is not coming back. And Tank Dell's probably going to be out for the season after that nasty injury around Christmas time at Kansas City where it was just gruesomely, it was gruesome. It was so bad. I remember CJ Stroud was crying on the field. I mean, understandably so. But I think Kirk's a good solid number 2 opposite Nico Collins. Gives him a receiver CJ Stroud to go to. And the other news of Jacksonville. Actually, this one a bit of a stunner. They released Evan Ingram. But I think with the new general manager and coaching staff, they didn't see what he needed there. So they decided to head to another direction. Understandably so. New coaches, new GM wants their own new players. Let's see where all this goes. Because quite honestly, Jacksonville's a mess. Just like Cincinnati, Jacksonville has a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. They have to pay a stupid amount of money to, which I don't know, is just more of a question mark than what Burrow got in Cincinnati. At least Burrow had 2 playoff appearances and a Super Bowl appearance to show for it. But that's the reality of the salary cap, especially the NFL. Everybody has to be aware of it. I mean, that's why you see Kansas City for the longest time restructuring contracts of guys like Patrick Mahomes over there. Excuse me. And of course, they had to trade Joe Thuney because they have to sign Trey Smith, Trent McDuffie, among many others. That's why teams like Buffalo had to restructure the contract of Josh Allen not too long ago. And among many other teams, I think, trying to think, somebody else had to restructure. Oh, yeah, Dallas had to restructure CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. It's the nature of the NFL salary cap. Don't exempt yourselves from it because nobody is exempt. Because it goes up and up. As the contracts go up, they're going to have to make adjustments before the league new year kicks in. That's what's being done now before Wednesday starts. And let the games begin once free agency begins. Never thought I'd have to have such a heated discussion on my show. My goodness. Because it's some of the problems I have over here after Witness. Now I'm going to jump into the sport of boxing. Of course, the news over the weekend was, of course, the fiasco between Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. Comes out, excuse me. It comes out that this governing body first tried to defend Tank Davis, and then now this president, Gilberto Mendoza, is backpedaling, saying that they're in Lamont Roach's corner, that they think he should be rewarded the win. Of course, it's supposed to be a ruling from the New York State Athletic Commission with this whole fiasco with the 9th round. Everybody knows Tank Davis took a knee, and basically the referee, Steve Willis, just counted and stopped in the middle of it. I guess someone caught some kind of hot cam, or they tried to ask Steve Willis about it, and I guess he didn't want to talk about it. Maybe because he's in the middle of the investigation, maybe which he can't and shouldn't, understandably so. But I guess the decision's supposed to be coming here soon or shortly. We'll see what that one is. But as I said before, just like when Deontay Wilder stepped up to fight Tyson Fury, the exact same thing happened to Tank Davis when he fought Lamont Roach. Because Wilder and Fury were protected for the longest time. Then when they stepped up, we seen what happened. We saw what happened to Deontay Wilder at the end after the Fury trilogy. And we're fixing the same thing for Tank Davis at this rate. Because I think it's likely, if they have a rematch, I think it's a 50-50 chance of happening, I think Lamont Roach takes him. And when that happens, good luck trying to defend him, Tank Davis fans, because you don't have a leg to stand on. That includes a moron Ray Jackson. Now, speaking of the moron Ray Jackson, I guess there's some session is going to take place where he's going to fight Sean Porter. Just do us all a favor, Sean Porter, and put this guy out of the misery, because the boxing community's had it with his antics and his idiocy and his race-biting ways in the boxing community. I mean, I'm not saying kill the guy or hurt the guy, but just put him away so the guy never speaks again. Because that's who Ray Jackson is in the boxing community. I've always been a fan of Sean Porter. I mean, the back end of the 2010s, fought everyone, ducked no one. I mean, he had a great back and forth fight with Keith Thurman in the back end of the middle of the end of the 2010s. Can't remember what year that was. Good fight. I've always been a fan of Sean Porter. He's done a good job as an analyst. I mean, very good job. Knows the sport very, very well. And I've always been a Sean Porter fan. He's a fellow Ohioan like myself. So Sean Porter, just do us all a favor and get rid of this moron for good. Oh, I never thought I'd have to talk about an internet troll like that who likes to race bite and whose best buddy inside the bedroom is Tank Davis. That's what Ray Jackson is. Another topic for another day. And of course, they talk about the numbers for the last crescendo. I don't care for numbers. Reason being, 90% of you guys in the boxing community resort to the stuff that used to be way back when there were pay-per-views, trying to illegally access it without having to cough up money. That's why numbers are low. You guys are to blame for it. If you're not going to get a pay-per-view the right way, don't bother watching the sport, because you're disrespecting those who are paying the right dollar for it. You're disrespecting the fighters who are working their butts off, getting in that ring and fighting at a high level, especially with the kind of card they had over there in Saudi Arabia. You're just a bunch of disrespectful cowards resorting to that stuff in the community, and that's why I don't even deal with you. So it is what it is. I'm not going to partake in the numbers because everything is just out there. That's why the numbers will always be low, because we have people resorting to using illegal devices, illegal whatever, to illegally stream these pay-per-view stuff, because you don't have the courage to put the money up to support the fighters. Good luck, because I'm not going to deal with you. I don't know. There's a reason why I don't pay for the sport, because I have a serious business needs outside of the boxing community and what I do here, and they require my undivided attention, and that comes before everything else. So, but I always support the fighters. There's a pay-per-view I will pay for. I will pay it, and I recommend everybody do that too, because if you don't, it's on you. Never thought I'd have to talk about this 30 some odd years later, because this was a big deal back when back when pay-per-views were all over the place and people were doing it then. I mean, how the hell can you live with yourself being resorting to such little tactics? It's worse than grand larceny, I'm telling you. Now I'm going to get to my favorite part, because I have to teach you kids about some historical stuff. Actually, this is March 6th has some deep history in recent years. It's historical moments. Actually, I'll get to the first one real quick. This one took place in San Juan, Puerto Rico. This was between Antonio Cervantes and Wilfredo Benitez for Cervantes' 140-pound title. The story here with this one was it was a pretty darn good fight. The reflexes in the style of Wilfred Benitez garnered him the super lightweight championship of the world. And the history here was Wilfred Benitez became the youngest world champion ever at age 17. A record that is probably never going to be broken. Took place 49 years ago in one of the stadiums out there in San Juan, the hometown of the standout Wilfred Benitez. We have the Four Kings documentary on Showtime. We know that, and we know who they are. Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. They always ask who the fifth king is. Strong suit goes to probably Wilfred Benitez. I mean, had a great fight with Sugar Ray Leonard, beat Roberto Duran, gave a great fight with Thomas Hearns, won multiple world titles and at least 2 to 3 weight classes. Very, very good fighter. You could probably mention him as the fifth king. Of course, a sad story with him is what's become of him health-wise, which I'm not going to get into because it's a sad story. But Wilfred Benitez was just a beautiful fighter to watch. When he reigned as the junior welterweight, and junior middleweight champion of the world. It basically fought 3 of the 4 kings. Never could get the fight with Hagler for various reasons. That's where his career went on the downturn. But one of the all-time underrated fighters of all time was definitely Antonio Cervantes. Winning a couple of after losing this fight, he would get the title back, only to lose it to the great Aaron Pryor in a terrific fight. But also a fighter who basically ducked no one, fought all comers. A vastly underrated fighter was the great Antonio Cervantes. But he and Wilfred Benitez 49 years ago gave us a great show. And Wilfred Benitez set the record for becoming the youngest world champion in boxing history at age 17 when he won the super lightweight championship of the world. Just a terrific, terrific fighter. Actually, they both were. I mean, Cervantes doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about the all-time great junior welterweights. I mean, he's definitely top 10 all-timer in that division, in my opinion. And, of course, maybe the biggest splash, pro debut splash, you could probably argue at the time, was the debut of Mike Tyson. It was, we'll pull this up here to count this years correctly. It was at 1985, which is 40 years ago today, at the Plaza Convention Center in Albany, New York, in his own hometown, where Tyson made his pro debut and just demolished Hector Mercedes in less than a round. Took him a minute 40 seconds. You know, we know the story of Mike Tyson chronicled everywhere possible. I called him the most polarizing boxer ever, simply because every time he steps in the ring, opinions are divided, sparks are flew, serves as stature in history. Some call him the greatest ever to the most overrated. I don't get involved in the conversation because I don't know what the criteria is. But I've always said he was a guy that everybody wanted to talk about. Everyone wanted to spend money on when he stepped in that ring for the better half of really from when he stepped in the ring in 1985 against Mercedes up to the Spinks fight, because he was the thing everybody wanted to talk about, everyone wanted to write about. Before we had the internet, social media, and live streams and all this good stuff, Mike Tyson was that in the 80s because everybody wanted a piece of this guy. I mean, he was a cash cow, obviously. I mean, great, also undisputed champ at a time when undisputed meant something. But when it comes to the story and the event, whenever the name Mike Tyson came up, everybody was tuned in. I mean, he got you glued to the TV. He got you glued to the fight posters. If you were one of those ones that spent money to go to his fights, he was the one you wanted to buy the ticket to watch in the front row. That was Mike Tyson. Especially the capper was 1988 when he beat Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. But of course, that was the end-all be-all for him. He was still talked about, but not at the level, because after that point, we know the story about his life. Went to Don King, fired Kevin Rudy, yada, yada, yada. Lost to Buster Douglas. Found guilty of rape, wound up in prison. Came back. It was just basically in it for the money and nothing else. But from the day he stepped into the boxing ring in 85 to the Spinks fight in 88, he was the event. Maybe you could argue that the event all of sports, because they might do Super Bowls and the NBA and even the World Series, even though they were rising up in the rankings, couldn't captivate what Mike Tyson was doing and how he was selling events, not just to diehard fans like myself, but the casual fans who don't know anything about the sport. I mean, the thought of watching this guy going out there and just blowing fighters out in 1 or 2 rounds, that got you hooked. Just the way he did it got you hooked into Mike Tyson. I always said, just an exciting fighter, most talked about fighter, most polarizing for many, many reasons, largely because it was placed in history, but that's what Mike Tyson was. He certainly was an event, but his pro debut was 40 years ago in Albany, New York, at his home state. Blew out Hector Mercedes in the minute 40 seconds. That was just the start. Actually, interesting tidbit, because you guys complained about fighter activity. His first year as a pro, Mike Tyson had 18 fights. Think about that for a minute. And all those 18 guys were just wiped out. That's activity, people. Now we're going to fast forward a couple years. Excuse me. This took place at the Reno Sparks Convention Center in Reno, Nevada. This was Hector Camacho against a comebacking Ray Mancini. This event is brought up simply because of the topsy-turvy career of Hector Camacho. For my fight followers, you know the documentary of Hector Camacho on the Showtime networks. But this fight was symbolic of what he was in the post-Edwin Rosario version of Hector Camacho. You guys don't know, he had the fight against Edwin Rosario at 86. Was considered the next big thing, but had a life and death struggle with Rosario, where people could say Rosario took the macho out of Hector Camacho, and that's where Hector became a safety-first fighter. After that, you could probably point to this night against Ray Mancini as the starting point of this. I mean, Hector Camacho was just a dazzling fighter to watch before the Rosario fight. I mean, I don't think he wanted. I mean, the pure talent was there. No one was flashier than Hector Camacho. We talk about the speed, out of the southpaw stance, and of course the outfits and his wardrobes and whatever. But this is where he started to become a safety-first fighter. Fought a Ray Mancini who was, I think, 3.5 years removed from 2 tough fights against Livingstone Bramble. For both fights, he got beat up all over the place, and gave a good account of himself in this fight, losing a tough split decision in a fight where the crowd, which was pro Mancini, started littering the ring because they were protesting the decision. I thought it was a draw at best. I can understand that gripe either way. Lots of close rounds. Biggest thing here, Mancini was the aggressor, but I don't think he was being an effective aggressor, because there were times where Camacho made a miss. But the problem was, the reason why Hector Camacho couldn't pull away was while he was making Ray Mancini miss, he wasn't making Ray Mancini pay, because the pre-Rosario version of Hector Camacho would have made Ray Mancini pay, because he was an excellent counterpuncher of the southpaw stance, especially with a quick 1-2 with that fast jab of his, which Teddy Atlas called the trip hammer, because that's what it was. But this was symbolic of what was to come to Hector Camacho in the post-Edwin Rosario version of his career. And basically, we know what happened to him after that. He did beat Vinny Pazienza, probably his last real good performance. Had the 2 bizarrely wild fights with Greg Haugen, where basically both guys were just different characters in those fights. Camacho lost the first one, largely because he wouldn't touch gloves with Haugen prior to the 12th round. It was still a crazy event. Then after the second fight, at the end of the 11th round, Haugen gets in Camacho's face. Camacho takes a cheap shot, loses a point, but still escapes with a split decision win. But we had to hang on for the last 2 to 3 rounds because Greg Haugen was coming on like gangbusters in that fight. Finally got the fight with Julio Cesar Chavez in 92. Got the dog Willikers beaten out of him. And it was basically all she wrote. Got fights against Trinidad and De La Hoya only because he had a name. Beat the 40-something versions of Roberto Duran and Ray Leonard. But that was all she wrote. But this fight with Ray Mancini was basically symbolic of who Hector Camacho became after his tough fight with Edwin Rosario in 86. Ray Mancini would have one more fight after this. He would lose to Greg Haugen in 92. But a very, very tough and durable fighter, always exciting, blood and guts. But maybe you could say Ray Mancini himself wasn't the same after the unfortunate circumstance in 1982 when he fought Dooku Kim in one of the most grueling and brutal fights where he basically beat Kim to where Kim eventually died of injuries after the fight, and it caused a ricochet effect to where Ray Mancini sometimes admits he walks the streets and people ask him what it's like to kill a man. So both guys going into this fight had some post-fight, post-career baggage after marquee events. Some, they didn't bring it on themselves, but it is what it is in the sport of boxing. That's what this was. But they did put a heck of a fight 36 years ago at the Reno Sparks Convention Center in Reno, Nevada. Shout out to Ray Mancini, durable fighter. Actually, he just had his 64th birthday. Happy belated birthday, Ray Mancini, fellow Ohioan like myself. May God rest his soul, Hector Camacho. We know how the tragedy ended there. Sometimes when you read these stories of fighters, I push life in perspective a little bit for people like myself. I'll acknowledge it, because what Hector Camacho went through up and down, in and out of the ring, and even in the ring, it's a life of its own. It's a must read. But let me remind you, the tragedy might be one that will hit your heart a little bit, especially when you go through the stuff that he went through. Now to a more jubilant moment. And this one's for all you, the real purists, diehard purists out here, because neither of these two guys were flashy. Neither of these two guys were, I want to say they weren't household names, because I want to send it to the best fighter in the world. Neither of these two guys would, get you to watch a television set. But in terms of purist, boxing purism, this fight 33 years ago in Madison Square Garden was it. It was James Buddy McGirt defending his welterweight title against Pernell Whitaker. You're not going to find two more pro fighters than these two guys. James Buddy McGirt, winner of many fights. I think like 59, had amassed 59 wins at this point against Pernell Whitaker, knocking on the door to the distinction of the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. And people would say this is the night that he took it, but it was a marvelous fight for the purists, because that's what it was. You had a Buddy McGirt who was basically a worn-down fighter because his left arm was basically done after a fight against Gennaro Leon before then. You had Pernell Whitaker making his welterweight debut, had a guaranteed contract to fight Julio Cesar Chavez, regardless of the result, but had to take care of business against Buddy McGirt. And it was a terrific fight. First 6 rounds, pretty much even. But when Buddy McGirt could no longer use that left hand, that was when Pernell Whitaker took over, rounds 7 through 10. And that's probably where Pernell Whitaker won the fight. He showed as a display of ring generalship, master craftery, the 1-2 out of the southpaw stance, making Buddy McGirt miss and making him pay. Even though McGirt, you can argue McGirt probably won the last 2 rounds of that fight. But round 7 through 10 is where I thought Pernell Whitaker won it. I mean, it was a some people call it a disputed decision either way, but it was a great fight for the diehard purists who love the pure elegance and the pure of the sweet science that these two displayed at Madison Square Garden 32 years ago today. And it was a beautiful fight to watch, especially if you're like the real purist, the real definition of the sweet science. That's what James Buddy McGirt and Pernell Whitaker showed in their first of their 2 fight series at Madison Square Garden. Of course, Whitaker got the win, should have gotten the win against Julio Cesar Chavez, and 6 months later, everybody knows the story with that. Of course, McGirt got a couple wins, got a rematch with Whitaker, floored Whitaker in the second round of their rematch. But after that round, it was basically it. Whitaker just took over the rematch from that point on and just won a go-away unanimous decision. Buddy McGirt was essentially done at that point. Whitaker went on to win a 154-pound belt, but his decline was coming soon because he, like Camacho, got hooked into alcohol and substance abuse, and it started to take its toll as his career wound on after the second McGirt fight. Lost the title to De La Hoya, albeit a disputed decision. And really lost to Trinidad in 99, but that was the end game for him. But we talk about the purists of the sport, the pros, guys that, they're not going to be the ones you first see when you turn on the TV screen for the casual fan, but for the pure diehards who love the pure elegance of the sweet science, as it is always talked about in the sport of boxing. James Buddy McGirt and Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker displayed it 32 years ago today at Madison Square Garden in New York City on an HBO free, actually an HBO free preview weekend where this fight was televised, and the people got a chance to witness a beauty of a fight between 2 legit professional fighters. The key words being professional, because that's what these 2 guys were in that fight at Madison Square Garden. It was just a thing of beauty. Again, these 2 guys weren't going to flash you. These guys weren't going to attract a casual fan, but it certainly packed the house in Madison Square Garden, all of them chanting for Buddy McGirt, who was a hometown fighter from around that part of New York. But it was a thing of beauty, and it was certainly a beautiful fight to watch. I mean, Buddy McGirt was a pro's pro, rebounded well after a loss of Meldrick Taylor, worked so hard to get to that point, upset Simon Brown in 91, had to take some time off, got the fight against Gennaro Leon where the unfortunate circumstances with the shoulder happened. But James Buddy McGirt was a real hard worker who wanted to fight the best out there, never ducked anyone. It was the pro's pro. I mean, he amassed, I think, up to 60 wins at that point around in that category because he was constantly fighting, constantly active, and basically brought his best whenever he fought. Just like we saw Pernell Whitaker do in his career, which, of course, Whitaker ascended maybe to a top 25 all-time great, arguably a top 5 all-time great lightweight. Had a great run as a welterweight also. I think he made like 9 or 10 title defenses until he lost the title to De La Hoya. But another great fighter. Again, these are the ones that not going to appease everyone because they don't have the electrical. I'll be the word to use. The electric crackle that comes out that sparks the fans out because they weren't explosive like a Mike Tyson was. But when you look up the definition of the sweet science in boxing as it is, the definition of the sweet science as it is, James Buddy McGirt, Pernell Whitaker, despite it in the 2 fights, the first one being 32 years ago at Madison Square Garden. May God rest his soul, Pernell Whitaker, definitely an all-time great. And I hope James Buddy McGirt's doing well. Actually became a respectable trainer. Actually trained Antonio Tarver to shock Roy Jones in the second or third fights when he delivered the knockout in that fight. Trained Arturo Gatti well. A lot of people know him as a trainer, but was a very, very sound fighter in the 140 and 147 pound weight classes. Won 2 world titles. And just a pro's pro. Just did it the hard way, earned it the hard way. Got a lot of respect in the boxing community, both as a fighter and as a trainer. And you can say the same about Pernell Whitaker as a fighter because he earned it too also. I mean, was chasing the stature of the best fighter pound for pound. Could probably argue when he beat McGirt, he achieved that. Again, all subject up to debate, but that's what the consensus is. I wish I had more fans who could understand the pure elegance of the sweet science of boxing the way McGirt and Whitaker did in their 2 fights because it was a thing of beauty. It really was. I mean, I got a chance to reflect on their first fight after I got a chance to see it a little bit the other day, and that's what it was. Just a thing of beauty. I mean, unfortunately, Buddy McGirt was a one-arm fighter. Before a fighter who had only one arm, he did about as well as you could possibly could. I mean, he won probably 4 or 5, at least 4 rounds of that fight. You could probably argue 5 with just one arm against, the best fighter in the world at that point. It says a lot about the courage about James Buddy McGirt. I mean, he was a terrific fighter. I mean, the people today think of him as a trainer. I encourage everyone to dig up the fight history of James Buddy McGirt, a pro's pro who basically worked hard at his craft, mastered his craft, peaked probably when he beat Simon Brown to win the welterweight championship at a time when he was supposed to be pegged as an opponent for Simon Brown. And basically, from that point, that's who Buddy McGirt became. Obviously, a Hall of Famer for his career. It did some of probably also for his work as a trainer, but James Buddy McGirt was a huge plus in the boxing community, and everybody loved him and respected him, especially in upstate New York, where he's from. And the same goes for Pernell Whitaker. A lot of people called him boring. It's called the sweet science. As his late trainer Lou Duva would eloquently say, if this guy was a heavyweight, he'd be appreciated more because heavyweights were the division. There was a time back then. Heavyweight division went as a sport went, and people would be respecting Pernell Whitaker a lot more if he wasn't in the lighter weight classes. Still vastly underrated. We talk about the all-time greats. In my opinion, he's a top 25 fighter. I mean, what can you say? The only fighter to unify the lightweight division in 3 title in the 3-belt era, 2 winning the super lightweight title, to the welterweight, to the junior middleweight title. Gold medalist, Hall of Famer, 89 fighter of the year. Probably should have won it more times, but definitely won it in 89. Salute to the great Pernell Whitaker. May God rest his soul. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everyone has themselves a wonderful rest of the 6th of March, 2025. I'll be on an NFL show tonight, another NFL show tomorrow. Program reminder, Saturday night, a rare Saturday night where I will be live. I will be looking back at a historical moment that took place last century, and one that always gets his attention, regardless of the day, time, or place. I will be back live Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But until then, Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day today and tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. As always, make self-care your number one priority, because if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. Good night and God bless.